It's the next level.
Hmm? Ah!
My husband is many things, but he is not a liar.
You're gonna lecture us about lying, Betty? From the look on his face, even your old man here didn't know you speak English. How do we know she's not covering for it?
Because she isn't. Why would he burn the raft?
He's been after me since day one. Everybody knows it.
Okay, it's personal. But why take it out on our best chance of getting off the island? Why would any one of us block an attempt to get home? We're so intent on pointing the finger at one another that we're ignoring the simple, undeniable truth that the problem isn't here, it's there. They've attacked us, sabotaged us, abducted us, murdered us. Maybe it's time we stopped blaming us and started worrying about them. We're not the only people on this island, and we all know it.
Welcome, survivors. I like the name Survivors, by the way. You came up with
thanks. I did.
We didn't even
I'm
get
the
into the
best.
intro. I know. But welcome, survivors, into another episode of We Have to Go Back, the Lost Revisited podcast. A newly formatted Lost Revisited podcast, which we'll get...
You can thank me for that one as well.
Yes, I can. You know, you just take credit for the entire podcast. It's fine.
Okay, deal.
It was all your idea.
was.
I'm just one of the voices.
Well, I also wrote, directed, produced, and starred in Lost.
Okay, Tommy Wiseau. If you get that reference, congratulations. But from the Next Level Podcast Network, I am Ben Beck.
And from Podcastica, I am Kristin Howell. I'm in a mood today, guys.
But as we had mentioned, newly formatted in that there are two things changing to this podcast. The first, not as big, but just as important, we're going to have a new segment added to the podcast, which we're going to get to after we discuss the episode of Lost that we're going to talk about. But we're going to be adding in what we're calling the Manifest Minutes, since Manifest is, you know, the new NBC show Manifest is pretty similar to Lost.
And we're both very much digging it.
Yeah, and we know we got a couple notes after the last time we talked about it that people were interested in hearing more about it. So we're going to keep doing it, and that's all we have to say about that.
So we'd really like it if you guys could watch Manifest as well with us. If you haven't watched it yet, there's only 3 episodes that has played. Most recently, you know, the 3rd episode was actually a couple days ago. So yeah, it's great.
Yeah.
It's awesome.
I mean, we're not going to spend too much time on it like we do the episodes of Lost, maybe 5 to 10 minutes. So if you're not watching or you're not caught up, you'll be able to skip forward a little bit and jump to when we're done talking about it. And we'll let you know when we're going to be talking about it, obviously. But all right, we'll just leave it a mystery. It's fine.
Yeah, it'll be fine.
Let's talk about it right now. No, the other big change coming to the podcast is we're no longer going to be on the 1st and 15th of every month. As you're already hearing, this is before the 15th. And that's because we're going weekly.
Yay!
Kristin brought up a very good point in that we're now getting to some episodes that there's so much going on that it's going to be almost impossible to cover 2 episodes. Because there's going to be so much to talk about just one, that we're really not doing the episodes justice if we do 2 episodes of podcast and kind of leave some stuff out from some of them.
Well, especially the next episode, which is Numbers, which is Hurley's first episode. And it's, I remember I was about 5-10 minutes into the episode, and I texted you immediately. I was like, we need to go weekly. We need to do this one at a time now, because Numbers is shaping up to be one of those episodes.
Well, not only that, but it's even the episode we're going to talk about this week, which is in translation, episode 17 from season 1. Mm-hmm. There's a lot that happens in this episode too.
Absolutely.
And I found that it's weird because even making this shift from, twice a month to weekly, one episode or 2 episodes of podcast to 1 episode of podcast, I've found myself making more detailed notes because I've kind of almost felt like I was skimping on my notes to make sure I got to the main things I wanted to talk about because we were talking about 2 episodes. And now that we're talking about 1, I feel like my notes can be in more detail because now we're going to be focusing on just that episode. So,
right.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot that we're going to talk about in this episode.
I hope, it covers one of my favorite characters, so we're good.
Yeah, and I have some notes about that too, in that he shouldn't be your favorite character. No, I'm just kidding.
You don't get to choose my favorite characters.
I don't get to choose anything on this podcast. Haven't we established that already?
Yeah, it's all me.
You're in total control.
I'm glad that we've gotten this part out of the way.
Hashtag Me Too movement. Anyway.
What?
I'm kidding.
You're going to pay for that one.
I know. I'm going to pay for a lot of things. Listeners aren't going to like that one either.
No, you should edit it out.
No, I don't edit anything out of this podcast.
All right.
By now. It's a joke. Okay, it should be hashtag women's empowerment. No, not even that either. I'll stop now.
Just stop.
But as we have mentioned before, this podcast is going to be spoiler full. We are going to be talking about things that happen, not just on the episode, but of course the future of the series because, we can. And that's a good enough reason. So we apologize for anybody who's watching this, watching the series for the first time with us, but we're excited that you're doing so because we're jealous of you.
Yes, always jealous.
We've said a number of times we wish we could scrub our brains and, watch this series for the first time every time.
Yes. But this and Game of Thrones, I wish I could do it.
I still watch it for the first time every time I watch Game of Thrones. I mentioned that before. I still watch episodes now into whatever season we're in. I still don't know character names. I still don't remember.
Well, I'm sorry to hear that.
I know. But we're gonna stick to top 3 for right now. We might change that when we jump into like later episodes and into season 2 for top 5. We might change that to top 5, but we'll stick it to top 3 for right now. And then of course we'll cover some other last minute notes we want to make sure we mention when we're done with that. But let's jump into the episode. Season 1, episode 17, in translation, a Jin backstory.
Yay.
And I've started to realize too, watching this episode, that something you said in an earlier episode, whereas I would watch these episodes and I would call them a Jin and Sun backstory, but you were the one that even clarified that and like, no, each of these characters has their own backstory. They're just intertwined with each other. Mm-hmm. And you're absolutely right. This is easily a Jin backstory, not a Jin and Sun backstory.
No, Sun is she's a complement to the story, but this is all Jin. And I read somewhere earlier today, this is the one and only Jin centric episode of the entire series.
Really?
Yeah, which is interesting.
Yeah, for sure. Before we get into, I'm going to let you go into your top 3 and start with number 3, but I just want to say once again, if anybody who's keeping count on the eye count, we start another episode with a close-up of the eye.
Yes, we did.
And that was with Jin's eye beginning off this episode. But let's jump into the top 3, and we'll kick it over to you. What's your number 3?
Well, hang on. I just want to talk about that eye for a sec. That seemed really forced. Was it me?
No, you're right.
It was like his eye, and then it just like cut to a beat shot. It just, none of that didn't seem to flow. It was like they just did it because it's their gimmick.
Yeah.
But yeah, I was just like, oh, that was bad. But no, I'll forgive it.
I agree with that. And it's also the difference between this eye shot as compared to other ones is that I think every other eye shot that we've gotten is an eye opening. It starts with a close up of the eye closed, and then it opens, and then it reveals who the eye was to. This one, the eye was open the whole time. There was no there was no close to open. The eye was open, and then you're right. It just cuts to like a beat shot of Jin.
Yeah, it was interesting. It was weird.
Yeah.
But so what I actually want to talk about for my number 3. It's actually my number 1. But I wanted to talk about it off the top, which was the actual title in translation. So, that's that's a play on Lost in Translation, and there's a movie about there's a movie called Lost in Translation. But what I also found is that there is a poem called Lost in Translation. It's by James Merrill, and he wrote it April 8th, 1974. It was published, which is interesting because it was published on 4/8, if we want to get into the numbers. But the poem is about a child. It's a narrative poem, right? So it's a poem about a child putting together a jigsaw puzzle. It is an interpretive puzzle designed to engage a reader's interest in solving mysteries at various narrative levels, which to me sounds exactly like the entire point of Lost. And when I read that, I just thought it was so interesting that this poem just kind of like appeared out of nowhere. So I kind of downloaded some stuff, and one of the things is that the poem has an epigraph at the very end, and it's 4 lines, and it was in German, and it was printed without translation. And it was totally separate from the rest of the poem in German. So there was no translation at the end until so the English version of the epigraph translates into, "These days which, like yourself, seem empty and effaced, have avid roots that delve to work deep in the waste." And I thought that was a lot like the island itself, and long days, and you're just trying to kind of like get through it all. Anyways, between that and the synopsis of this narrative poem and the fact that it was, published on 4/8, which we learn in the next episode that the numbers are very important to the whole thing. This can't be an accident that this poem has just like appeared, and it's the title of this episode. And I realized that the translation is Jin trying to understand his place on the island and how he's going to work it all out. And the fact that he learns that Sun can actually speak English. And, what I loved was the scene where everybody's yelling around him and we see it from his point of view. And, everything seems so garbled and confusing. And you really get a sense of kind of like what Jin has been going through for the past month on this island, and how isolating and alone he must feel. And then you look at his past, his flashbacks, and you see that he's got this isolating and lonely job where he probably doesn't understand why he's doing what he's doing, but he has to do it in order to protect his wife and to protect himself. And then he gets on this island and he's free of all that, but at the same time, he's stuck in this isolating environment all the same because of the language barrier. And he's just been completely lost on this island for the whole time. And it's not until Jin and Sun are actually able to break free of each other and like let go of that toxicity that's existed between the two of them, that we finally get Jin finally like injects himself into something that is not being this overbearing, borderline abusive husband. And I think this is kind of the launch pad of Jin becoming his old self again, kind of like at the end of the flashbacks with his father. We get to that point where he's realized how far he's gone and how he's taken it too far. Anyways, it's just, I love the title of the episode because I found this little poem, and this poem really attributed to the series as a whole. And it just totally blew my mind this morning. So.
Okay. Well, yeah, I mean, and just that one point too, talking about the title, and the poem Lost in Translation and such, you actually, in that whole discussion that you just had, you actually touched on a number of different notes that I had, which is not bad. None of them are actually any of my top 3. But, you mentioned the whole isolation of being on the island and kind of feeling alone, and you actually definitely do feel for Jin in this episode, because you're right. He did have that isolation, but at the same time, Sun was under the belief that Sun also was in the same situation. Sun was also isolated. That was the one connection that, while it was, toxic, was the one connection that the two of them still had on this island. And in revealing to everyone that she speaks English, including the Jin, it's gone. It's gone in a matter of a moment. You know, that whole connection that he had in the isolation that they were feeling together, she didn't have that. She was not feeling that isolation because she could speak English. She had already connected with Michael. She had already connected with Kate. So in a matter of like, in a second, and just her saying one word actually, that connection is gone, and he's even more isolated than he's ever been. And you can see that pain in his face in a look of confusion. We had mentioned I think in last week's episode, we were wondering whether or not Jin knew at this point whether or not she spoke English already. And I was under the impression, I had made the defense that I don't think he did, because when she does speak English, it's the look on his face is pure confusion and betrayal. And we finally saw that in this episode. And I stand by that I don't think he knew. I don't think he ever knew that she spoke English until that moment.
Yeah, I think that you're right. I do think that you're right. I was probably reading too much into it in previous weeks, because, you know, it just looked like maybe he just does that. It just, their relationship, their marriage is just so dissolved that everything that each of them does is, you know, the other one looks at with a distrusting eye.
Yeah.
But the solution to the puzzle of the poem of Lost in Translation by Meryl is that nothing is lost. And I think that that's really nice. I think that that's nice because at the end of this, even though Jin and Sun have gone their separate ways, we understand that their marriage is not lost and their marriage is not gone. In fact, it's going to go on to get stronger.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, absolutely. So, we're going to see probably one of the strongest connections between two people on the course of this show by the end of it.
Yes, absolutely.
And it's a very interesting journey to watch along the way. You mentioned the whole beach scene and the garbled language, and, you know, kind of hearing things from Jin's perspective, the way everyone was talking, and experiencing what it was like for him to be on the island the whole time. There's something else that happens in this episode that I don't know if you noticed, and it was something, maybe it's just me reading into things too much, which I tend to do now when it comes to this show. There's a particular scene where Sawyer and Jin are, together on the island, and Sawyer's talking to Jin. The camera shots of this, I don't know if you noticed this, kind of cut the top of Sawyer's head off and focus more on Sawyer's mouth. And then by the end of this episode, we also get the first words of English that Jin has ever spoken. And it's one word, it's boat. And it's, dealing with Michael and wanting to offer his help to Michael to rebuild the boat. I honestly think that was done on purpose. I think that was one of the first moments that because we do know that Jin does eventually learn English, and he learns it from listening to everybody else and just, being around everybody on the island. And I think that was a glimpse into Jin as well, where, on the beach, we get a glimpse into what he hears. I think this is a glimpse into what he sees. This is him watching people's mouths, hearing what's coming out. This is a glimpse of him learning English. Mm-hmm. And I think that was done purposely, and it was something I never noticed until watching it this time around. That's
so cool. Yeah, I didn't notice that, but that's very cool. I like that.
Because it's either that or the cameraman on that shot was horrible.
Which I'm sure not.
No, I think it was done on purpose.
Yeah. So I will agree with you. What was your number 3?
My number 3 is higher up on the list, but I'm going to go to it now anyway, and kind of bump it up a little bit. And you know me, I like to put little titles on mine, and mine is simply titled The Message. And this goes back to Jin's backstory and the message that he has to deliver for Sun's father.
Poor guy.
I know. And he doesn't understand the first time what delivering a message is to mean. And it's a lesson that's taught to him later. And I'm curious how you looked at this situation. We see it. He goes to this secretary the first time, tells him, that the man is disappointed in him, and he leaves it at that. The second time around, he's yelled at. He's disparaged. He's told someone else is going with him, and this man is in the back of the car putting a silencer on a pistol, telling Jin, you're going to drive 8 kilometers to the beach, most notably probably to dump the body. Mm-hmm. And, you know, we can see the look on Jin's face in that, okay, I screwed up. I look at this in one of two ways. I see this as one of two things happening. One for sure. The second one is kind of questionable, and that's what I'm interested in your opinion. Obviously, we see Jin kind of become the man that he is forced into becoming because he doesn't want to become that man. And you see him go into the house first, put a beating on this man, unfortunately, but fortunately enough for this man, it saves his life. It prevents this guy from going in there and killing him in front of his family. Instead, he just gets a severe beating in front of his family. And, you know, Jin says to him, he got the message, and walks out. Obviously, that's the one moment where we do get to see Jin become the man that he was forced into becoming. My question to you is, do we think this guy in the back of the car was intended to be there to kill him, or was this done by Sun's father to force him to become that man?
No. He was going to kill him.
Legitimately going to kill him.
Yeah. I think that Mr. Pike.
I think it's Pike. Yeah. I think it's anyway, I always read it as Pike.
I think Sun's father has no time for incompetence. And he was just ready to just demote him to, you know, getaway driver and just, you know, be done with him. He probably would have fired him or killed him if he wasn't his son-in-law, just because he probably viewed it as an act of incompetence.
But on the other hand, though, I think there was a legitimate connection to Jin with him because he was Sun's boyfriend / husband at the time. I mean, you look at a previous scene where he, you know, Jin was hanging his head in shame for, you know, something happening in a factory, and he gets promoted instead. So I think Mr. Pig actually did have a soft spot for Jin. So that's why there's a part of me that thinks this was done as a lesson to make him become the man that he wanted him to be, that hardened person who's going to deliver the message the way it should be. Because if this guy was truly there to kill this secretary, I think he would have done it anyway, whether he was beaten or not. That's just my opinion, and that's the way I viewed it. But I could be, again, this is something that's left to interpretation.
Mm-hmm. It's lost in translation.
So that was my number 2. That was my number 3, was the whole delivering of the message and the possible underlying meaning behind that.
Okay.
So, your number 2.
My number 2 was actually Locke. Locke got emotional for the very first time since this series started.
And I love that
Locke
speech.
Started yelling at people right and left. And what's interesting is that he did it because he wanted to focus people on what the real problem was, not because the raft was burned by the others, because he knew who burned that raft, and it wasn't the others. So, you know, what's interesting is that I think he's just so tired of the infighting and the fact that nobody's coming together, and the fact that, you know, people are trying to get off of this island, and he doesn't want to get off the island. He doesn't want to get rescued. He wants to stay there. There's so many mysteries of the island, and one of them is the fact that they're not alone. They've killed someone. They've taken Claire. They've drugged her. You know, they almost killed Charlie. They killed Steve or Scott.
Steve or Scott. All right.
You know, and nobody seems to be paying attention to this. And if I was Locke, I would finally lose my shit too. I'd be like, okay, you know what? I've had enough of this. You guys can all just shut up for a second. Go to hell. Yeah. You know, and I thought that was just so great to see Locke step forward and take a stand on something, because he's been so kind of laid back and accepting and kind of cryptic, and, you know, he gets the food and he has all the knives, and, you know, he's just been like this big question mark for a while. And if you don't know John Locke very well, you know, if you're watching the series for the first time, you're looking at this guy and you're like, okay, all right, Mr. Locke, he's angry. I think we should pay attention to this. So yeah, it was probably like you. It was one of my favorite moments of the episode.
Well, I mean, and believe it or not, this is actually my number 2 as well, is Locke's speech, and Locke kind of being the voice of reason in a totally other situation too, which I'll get to in a moment. But I mentioned it earlier on when we got if we don't, live together, we're going to die alone, is a huge quote that many people remember from the show. And this was another one that I mentioned at that time, is a big memorable quote. And it's Locke, screaming at everyone on the beach, "We're not the only people on this island, and we all know it."
Yeah.
I had completely forgotten that was in this episode. So when Locke started speaking, when I was rewatching this episode, I kind of got a little excited because it's a speech that I love. And I was like, oh, this is that speech. I'm like, I forgot it was coming up when it did. I knew it was towards the end of the season, but I just completely forgot about it until now. And I almost said it with him. I was watching the episode, and when he started saying, I'm like, "We're not the only people on this island, and we all know it." And I think like my arms were in the air because I was mimicking Locke when I was watching it. So yeah, I know. Imagine, yeah, picture that if you will.
I am picturing, because I've seen your new living room setup. So
that's true. But yeah, it's one of those speeches that I absolutely love of Locke, because Locke, we've heard this talked about in regards to another show, that show being The Walking Dead, and the term moral compass. And that, in many ways, believe it or not, I think is something that Locke is becoming. If not, hasn't been already. You look at the fact that
I think that's been established. I agree.
Yeah, I mean, you look at the fact that he is, he's somebody who helped Charlie kick his habit, cook his cocaine, kick his cocaine habit, and in many ways, he's somebody who kind of, we thought helped Boone get over, Shannon, and we find out there's still a little bit of residual to that in this episode.
Fucking Boone.
I know. But you also look at, in regards to another scene, we see the man that Saeed is, the man that Boone is, and again, in retrospect, the man that Locke is, because we see that the respect that Saeed has in coming to Boone about Shannon, we see the lack of respect that Boone has for Shannon, in telling Saeed, you're better off not doing it. Mm-hmm. And then we see Locke being, again, the voice of reason, telling Shannon, what's it matter what Boone thinks? If you like this man, then go with it. Like, it doesn't matter what Boone thinks.
Right. And then you have Jack, and Jack's the worst.
Jack's the worst. But yeah, I mean, and Locke even says it to Shannon, and it's been said before, and I'm sure it'll be said again. This is a new opportunity for all of us. It doesn't matter who you were before you were on this island. So that's why he says to Shannon, like, who cares what Boone thinks? Who cares who you were? Who cares what he thinks about who you were before? You're not that person anymore. This is a new start for all of us. And we see the official start of Saeed and Shannon by the end of the episode. So, but yeah, Locke is just one of my favorite parts of this episode as well. But Jin, obviously the main character of this. Let's go into our number ones. And,
so my number one was actually Locke and Shannon and Boone and Saeed. And so I'm like listening to you. I'm like, all right. Well,
that's what I was doing when you were talking about Locke's speech on the beach.
I know. You're like, darn it. I should have spoken first.
No, that's what you're doing.
No, that's okay. I don't care. I have lots that I could talk about with this episode, but yeah, I mean, just to touch on just on that, just everyone gets a new life on this island, and maybe you should start yours. And I think that that's kind of, one of the running themes of the whole series, is how everybody starts their new life. What is that new life going to be? I mean, we've seen Michael and Walt, they have solidified as a father-son dynamic on the island. It wasn't until Michael and Walt went through saving Walt when he was caught up in the bamboo. And I think it was a polar bear that was after him. Was it a polar bear or was it a boar?
After.
When Walt was stuck in
that was a polar bear. That was a polar bear. Yep.
And then, Michael saves his life, and works together with Locke to get him out of there. That, and then they were able to relax a little bit after that and share, Walt was able to open himself up to Michael, and Michael was able to kind of relax and allow himself to get to know, Walt. Right. And so you see a lot of that back and forth with the two of them as, the raft is going to get rebuilt, and learning about, Michael talking about the Flatiron building with Walt, and they're having those father-son conversations, which is really great. Shannon goes through her own arc, and, Saeed also went through a little bit of an arc too. I mean, Saeed decided to believe Boone over Shannon. Which was kind of shitty. He's gotten to know Shannon really well, and he doesn't know Boone at all. And Boone has kind of been a pretty boy this entire time. I mean, the guy has no skills. And he's mad at Shannon for having no skills. But I mean, when you really look at it, what can Boone do? He falls asleep on watch. He's the
reason why Scott/Steve got murdered.
Exactly.
Well, he might be the reason. We don't know for sure.
Whatever. He's the reason.
Boone is the worst.
But then, no, Jack is the worst. But Boone can be second place. But, I mean, he sees that Shannon is getting to be happy and getting to find her place on the island. And rather than be happy for her, he tries to ruin it for her. And that's not loving someone else. That's not, I mean, you don't tear someone down when they're succeeding. You build them up, you help them along, and that the toxicity between the two of them is very apparent in this little triangle dynamic. This episode, and Saeed falls into it, and I'm so glad that Locke spoke with Shannon and said, listen, everyone gets a new life on this island. Okay, you go start yours. Go do what you want to do. And she does it. And Saeed finally looks at her, and they're able to just kind of like solidify themselves and start their little life. Boone's gonna, go down a hatch. I don't know. But
no, he never makes it down the hatch.
So
spoiler.
Jin and Sun, they start their new lives, without each other on the island. That's a huge moment for the two of them, right? Yeah. Is making that decision. I mean, you could feel the pain in both of them, but you could also feel the relief in both of them at the end. It was like this painful moment that ended in relief, like a freedom. It's the breaking down of these toxic barriers that all of these characters brought with them on the island, and all of them are one by one shedding it, right? That's amazing. It's amazing to watch, and it's such a good message for anybody that thinks that this is their life and this is how their life will always be. No, your life can change. It can change on a dime, and you can decide if you're going to how you're going to let the circumstances of your life affect you moving forward. And I love that message. And I think that if you see that message and you see that hope, in a show like this, and you can internalize it and use it for good, that's wonderful, especially now. This world needs some hope, man. Oh. So watch Lost and get some hope.
Well, it's also interesting, too, when you look at that Boone and Shannon dynamic, in that the earlier episodes leading up to this, at least in my personal view, I was always more on Team Boone, and because Shannon just annoyed the piss out of me. But this is that first episode that I think that dynamic truly changed, in that I'm siding with Shannon. I'm very glad that her and Saeed are giving this thing a shot. And I'm kind of totally against Boone, because Boone was a dick for talking Saeed out of it. So yeah,
and it was just to hurt Shannon.
Yeah, it wasn't even
purpose.
It wasn't even to be against Saeed. You're right. It was to hurt Shannon. It was vindictive. against her or towards her. So he was a dick. And that's, I think this is that first episode where who I sided with kind of changed. Actually, it didn't kind of change. It changed.
Yeah.
Whereas there's something that happens to Boone before the end of this season, and I was more sad about Shannon's reaction to it than the actual event.
Yeah. Okay. I definitely see what you're saying. Yeah, I think Maggie Grace also, she could have been typecast as a character that was kind of, ditzy or whatever. And my opinion of her really, really changed watching her on last season of Fear the Walking Dead. And I saw how talented she really was. So watching her again on Lost right now, after seeing her in Fear the Walking Dead this past season, I'm enjoying her a lot more than I have in past rewatches.
Well, if you think about it, she was typecast for a little while.
Taken?
Yeah, the Taken movies being the one that was like, come on, you're going to get kidnapped 3 times? Like, that's ridiculous.
She didn't get kidnapped 3 times.
Well, she wasn't kidnapped in the third one. I think it was her mom that was kidnapped in the third one. I can't remember.
She was kidnapped in the second one.
Maybe she wasn't. I don't remember. I stopped after the first one.
Okay.
I just don't remember the second one. More like it.
I see that.
Yeah. But you look at, some of the other characters that she's played. She was in Californication, and she was kind of like the same role in that too. And I think even before that, she just did a bunch of one-offs. And you're right. I really do like her character of Al in Fear the Walking Dead. It's a definite change from her. So it's nice to see her break away from that.
Or even her voice is different. Everything's different. So anyways, it's fun to watch her now and see how far she's come with, where she is in Fear the Walking Dead versus where she was in Lost. But I love that line. Of everyone gets a new life on this island. Maybe you should start yours. 'Cause I just think it's something that's so applicable to us. Just kind of going forward in our own everyday mundane lives. It's what, living your best life.
Yeah.
Kind of thing.
Yeah. I can see that.
So that's my number one. What's your number one?
My number one has absolutely nothing to do with Jin, Sawyer, Jack, Locke, any of those guys. The title I've put on my number one is Dead Batteries. And this, I mentioned this the last time we saw this in Hurley listening to the Discman, in which I would love to talk to that man and find out how he was able to walk around the island and not have that CD skip. Because let's face it, if you ever owned a Discman, if you took 2 steps, you got a skip in your CD. But
that's why he sat down.
But he was still walking with it for a while.
Hey man, the island is mysterious, and maybe Discmen work better like, a paralyzed guy that can now walk.
Hey,
why are we splitting hairs here?
You had me at the island is mysterious. That's all you need. That's all you needed to say. And I was on board again.
Okay, perfect.
But I think, again, me possibly taking a deeper meaning into this than really should be. It's a moment that, we see him. Don't get me wrong, from the writers and producers' perspective, it's a brilliant way to incorporate a song into the ending of a show, because, they've
been doing it for a while.
Yeah. And it's a way for them to cleverly incorporate a song for like a montage of everything that's going on the island. And it's basically the music that Hurley's hearing. And then all of a sudden you get that moment where the music stops and you see Hurley look down and realize the batteries are dead. Damn it.
Son of a bitch.
It's a moment that made me chuckle, but seeing it this time around made me realize something. That was lighthearted music, saying like everything's going to be okay and everything. And it really speaks to what's going on in that moment. Again, everything's moving forward, and then the batteries die and the music stops. And you look at the future of this season, because there's nothing easy coming for these guys for the rest of this season, starting with this next episode. You've got the numbers, which it becomes
great episode. Can't wait to talk about it.
And becomes a huge overarching story for the rest of this series.
Yes.
Following that, you have the plane full of the plane. I'll just keep it at that. The episode after that, you have the death of one of our characters for the first time. One of the main characters dying. And then from that point on, it's full steam ahead from the boat to the hatch to the dynamite, everything. This is the last moment that things are peachy keen for the rest of this season.
Oh, that is so cool. I did not put that together.
And I think
that's awesome.
I think that's tied together. And with the batteries dying and the music stopping, that's a key moment, because from this point on, there's nothing nice happening.
Would you say that it's the day the music died?
Oh, yeah. That's a good way to put it. But again, it might be me overreading into this, but it might not be, because
no way.
You think that's something deeper that they did?
I think you're totally on point. That's so awesome. What a great number one.
Yeah, that was my number one, because it was so funny when I realized that too, because I'm watching that scene and the music stops and I chuckled like I did last time, and then it clicked. I'm like, oh, wait a minute. I know what's happening for the rest of this season. And yeah, there's no reason to have that happy-go-lucky music again for the rest of the season, because we're going to see death. We're going to see destruction. We're going to see relationships become more complicated. And yeah, it's just full steam ahead from this point forward after this episode. Really, really so.
I love that. That's so cool.
Every once in a while I get one.
Hey, today's your day. That's awesome.
That's true. So one of the things I do want to say, and it's in regards to, Jin being your favorite character. And I'm starting to realize more and more why that is. And it's because of this episode that I'm starting to realize that out of all these characters, while Jin was never really my favorite, I always leaned more towards Locke, Charlie, Hurley, and Ben later on in the series. Not because we share a name, just because he's an amazing character that we learn more about later. It really took me going in depth into this episode and really paying attention to it to realize that out of every character we've met and every character we're going to meet, in my personal opinion, Jin is the most complicated, but yet most dynamic of all of them.
I agree.
You look at the dynamics in the beginning of this episode, just from what we see in the backstory to what's going currently on the island. You see this man who is desperately in love with his wife. He is pleading to her father, to have her hand, and, says, like, her father says, why are you willing to give up why would I be willing to give someone who's willing to give up their dreams? And his is a perfect reaction. And it's, because she is my dream. He's not giving up on his dream. She is. And it's a completely different person than what you're seeing currently on the island, in that he's covering her up so that she can't be seen. And, he's trying to silence her. And just the dynamics in the beginning of this episode alone are just minimal to what we learn and what we end up knowing about Jin. And he is easily one of the most complicated and dynamic characters this show has seen.
I will agree 100% with that. But yeah, that's what I talked about the very first episode that we did, right out of the gate with Lost. Jin is all of those things. And seeing kind of in this episode, the devolvement of this man into what he has become on the island, especially after we learn at the end of the episode that he was going to LA to walk away and save his marriage. And he could not break away from the man that he was, even after the plane crash with his wife, completely separate from anything that their life was. He still can't stop the man that he has become. He's so far gone. And I agree. I think this is the episode that kind of launches Jin's change, right?
Yeah.
He's even in the next episode, he's starting to develop relationships and friendships, even if they're just on the surface, even if there's still some animosity coming from other characters. He's beginning to assimilate and make an effort, and in doing so, he's going to have the greatest arc of all the characters. There is no one else in this show that has a better character arc from beginning to end than Jin.
No, I would agree with that. I think there are a couple characters that might come close, but I still don't think that they're as big as Jin's arc.
Jin is a completely different man at the end of this series. Completely different man. And it takes the entire
whole series
for it to happen.
Yeah, and I think that's why I said, like, there are some people whose arcs come close, but none as big as his, because of the fact that it takes from start to finish his arc to develop. You know, I mentioned Ben, and I think Ben is another one of those characters who, if you've never watched the show and you're watching with the first time with us, he's a character you haven't met yet and you won't meet for a little while. But he's another character that by the end of the series is a completely different person than, I mean, still with some tendencies, lingering from the person that we were introduced to, but he is a different character than the person that we meet when we first meet him. So he
still doesn't blink.
Look, Michael Emerson is a fantastic actor. I don't care what his methods are, it works.
He never blinks. The amount of eye drops that had to go into playing that character, I would just love to know what the over-under on that one is.
But I mean, oh God, I don't even want to picture it. But you know, he's a character, and again, we're jumping forward a little bit too, but he's such a fantastic and dynamic actor that he was a character that was originally written for only 3 to 4 episodes, and he gave such a performance and added such a dynamic to the episodes that he was in that they wrote him in for the rest of the series.
Yeah.
Which I think is fantastic, and I can't wait till we finally meet him so I can talk more about his character in depth.
Well, they did that with Chris Pratt as Andy Dwyer as well on Parks and Recreation.
Yeah.
He was only supposed to be on for like 2 or 3 episodes, and he was a central figure of the entire series.
I think he was just supposed to be like 2 or 3 episodes as just the shoeshine boy, and
no, as Ann Perkins' dumb boyfriend.
Oh, that's right. That's right. He wasn't even the shoeshine boy yet.
No.
That's right. He didn't even have the job at the courthouse yet. But yeah, so there's definitely some characters whose arcs come close, but you're right. There are none that are bigger than Jin's throughout the run of this series. Mm-hmm. Another question I have for you is, we talked about this last episode a little bit, and I'll bring it up again. We mentioned that anytime there's a character whose backstory it focuses on, it's almost as if the island is providing them a test. What do we think Jin's test was for this? Do we think this was how Jin reacts to isolation? You know, because again, you look at the future of look at Jack and where he ends up by the end of the series and the position that he takes. And then look at this and look at Jin having to deal with isolation. That's something that Jack was going to have to deal with. So was this the island testing Jin to see if he could handle that, to be put in that situation by the end if it came down to him?
What if it's a test that he failed, and it was the test of his marriage? And it was, can Jin handle the fact that Sung can English? Can Jin handle the fact that he is going to be the only one that is separated by language on the island? And he fails. He leaves his wife when he was supposed to fight for their marriage. That was the whole point of the trip from Sydney to LA, was to save his marriage. That's what his dad told him to do. And instead of saving his message, he took the prideful way out, and he gathered his stuff and he walked away from his wife when he should have stayed and fought for his marriage in that moment.
I could see that being the test, but you know what? This might make me sound like a horrible person, but
it does.
I know. I haven't even said it yet. I'm already a horrible person. I kind of side with Jin in that situation. Because, you know, I realize there's that whole moment where Sun is pleading to Jin, and Sun says to Jin, like, what did I do wrong? And I'm thinking in the back of my head, I'm like, you've been lying to him this whole time.
She was scared of him. She was scared of him.
And I understand that, but you know, she flat out says to everybody, there's one thing I know Jin not to be, and he's not a liar. So then why are you going to in return do that to him and be mad that he's and be upset that he's mad at you about that. Like you just admitted he was never a liar. So while he might have been abusive and she was scared of him, the one thing he never was is the one thing she turned out to be. So I kind of side with him a little bit on this. I'm not saying I side with him fully. I do think he should have stayed to work things out, but I kind of understand it. It's not like he's moving miles away. He's literally just moving to the beach.
But he left her and said it was too late. He said it was too late. And he left. I mean, he left her. I get what you're saying, but she didn't tell him that she spoke English because she was frightened. She was frightened of him. And that there's something to that. You know, I mean, this is a man that she has seen come home with blood all over his hands and his clothes regularly. She knows that her father is a dangerous man, and Jin has somehow gotten himself all wrapped up in her father's business, and she's scared of her father, and she's now scared of her husband. She's probably somebody that has been oppressed for her entire life.
Well, we don't know though at this point yet that she knows about her father. At this point in the series, we don't know that she knows this yet, because that was one of the things
when
he mentioned.
She said, "What are you doing for my father?" She knew that it had nothing. She says it in this episode.
She says it, but she's legitimately questioning it. Like she wants to know what he's doing. When you come home with blood on your hands,
I took that totally different. I took that as, how did you get wrapped up in his business?
No, because he even says to his father, when he goes to visit his father, he says to his father, "I don't want her to hate me for telling her about the man that her father is." So that to me made me believe she doesn't know.
Or she does, and she's very good at hiding things. We've learned this.
Which goes back to my point.
But she's probably had to stay quiet her entire life.
Maybe. Okay.
I'm just saying, like, if you're that scared of somebody and you have a huge secret, like, I can communicate with everybody, I would keep it to myself too, probably. I mean, look, she took too long. I'll give you that. She should have told him, you know, listen, I know English. But how do you say that? I need to learn English because I wanted to get away from you. And I was planning to leave you on this trip, but I didn't, right? Everything that she said at the end of this episode was everything that she was planning to do. And so learning English was a huge secret. And that was her secret to get away from her husband. I mean, that's a big secret to carry that goes with that language barrier.
Oh, no, I understand that.
The complexities of that marriage are just very intricate, very nuanced, and executed very well.
And I think it speaks to the brilliance of this show, as I've mentioned multiple times, in that there's so many different things that are left to interpretation. There's no one way to look at everything. You could look at things many different ways. And it makes me curious too, when you look at this episode and knowing that Jin was willing to stay in LA to work on his marriage, but she was willing to leave and stay in America, go to America with him, but stay in America. Would that have worked out? Because they both technically had the same plan, but neither one of them knew it. Like, he was going to stay in America and ask her to stay. But what would have happened if she wanted to go home?
She wasn't supposed to go to LA. She was supposed to get in the car at the airport, and she didn't go in the car at the airport when they were in Sydney.
Oh, that's right. She stayed with him and went with him to LA.
Correct.
So then wait a minute. If that was the original plan, was she was supposed to go with him to LA?
No, she wasn't.
Yeah, she would have had to, because otherwise, why would he have stayed in LA to work on his marriage if she was never supposed to be there with him?
Oh, no, she was, they were always going together.
That's what I mean. Okay. The original plan was for her to go with him to LA.
Okay.
Yeah.
Correct.
Because otherwise it wouldn't have made much sense, and it would have been a huge plot hole that we would have just discovered.
That somehow wasn't discovered in all the years since it's been on.
And over-analyzing of the show.
Exactly.
So, so we've gotten through our top 3 and then some, which I'm happy about, because I like when we keep talking about everything with the episode. And again, there was a lot to process in this episode. And another reason why I'm really glad we decided to go to 1 episode per episode of the podcast, because we're still just on 1 episode. If we had to talk about numbers in this episode too, we'd be going for another hour and a half.
And that's just too long.
Yeah.
I have like one note that I do want to talk about.
I have one or two, but go ahead.
Was that Hurley, the nicest guy on the island, the guy that likes everybody and everybody else likes, walked away from Jin and was just like, you know what? Nah. Yep. Okay. You hit your rocks, dude. I tried. Whatever. Yep. That I think is like kind of the bottom for Jin. If like you can't even find an ally in Hurley, dude, you got to change some things.
Yeah. Mentioning Hurley too, we got another crossover in this episode.
Yes, we did.
We got to see Hurley on TV.
A little bit. If you know what's happening, yes, a little bit.
Yep. Yeah, because I don't think I ever caught that the first time. I might have. I don't remember. It's been so long, my first time viewing these episodes, that I don't remember if I saw that the first time or not. I definitely know I've seen it every time since then. But if you look at the TV, when the little girl, when Jin goes to the secretary the first time to deliver the message,
gets the dog,
the little girl on TV is watching a news program in which we get to see Hurley, and we will find out in a season
why
or two
Hurley was on television.
Yep. I think it's Everybody Loves Hurley, or Everybody Loves Hugo.
No,
we find out before
it's Numbers.
It is Numbers. Oh yeah, we'll find out next episode why.
Yeah, because I've seen that episode, and that's when I said, no, we're doing one at a time now.
All right. The only other thing I wanted to bring up is one of the things we really haven't talked about out of everything from breaking this down is the whole Michael and Walt dynamic and the boat. One of the big things that happens this episode is, seeing the boat going up in flames, and very obviously, in implicating Jin in him being the one that does it. And the first time watching this, I think I honestly believed it. I think I believed that it was Jin, for at least when he was first accused. And then I think as the episode progressed, I was like, nah, it's a little too obvious. And I didn't know who it was, but I can tell you right now, I never called it being Walt.
No, Walt was the last person on my list. Maybe even further down than Michael.
Yeah. Yeah, Michael burning his own boat
would be more believable than Walt doing it. Yeah, I was shocked too. That was a good reveal.
Yeah, that was a big reveal for the end of the episode, was that having been Walt that burned the boat.
And there's more than one person that doesn't want to leave the island.
Oh, being Locke.
That's what I'm saying.
Oh,
but
okay.
I mean, Locke is the only one that really has accepted being there and enjoys being there. I think up until this point, we just assume everybody's just like, how do we leave? How? We need to go.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then we learn, later that, there's people that actually want to stay. Rose being one of them.
Yeah, and we really haven't gone into Rose yet.
We will soon.
Oh, I know we will.
Soon.
And it's so funny too, because the last thing I will say before we go into before we continue on is how I like to give little titles to my notes. My title for the whole boat burning and Walt and everything is When Your Travel Plans Go Up in Flames.
That's true.
I was going to jump into listener feedback, but because of the change in format, it was a little complicated because Steve Brown, who gives us a voicemail every week, he did leave us one, but it's voicemail on both in translation and numbers. So
we'll play it next week.
We can't play it this week. So I apologize to Steve, for not being able to play it this week. We're going to play it next week. So Steve, you don't have to leave us another one. We got your feedback for both. But if you want to leave us feedback for next week for numbers, we definitely encourage you to do that.
Or if you want to leave feedback about Manifest.
Yes, because
you have something to say about Manifest.
Well, that's actually what I was going to jump into.
Manifest
We need a theme song. That's gonna be it. I'm just gonna isolate that and we'll just play that.
Cool.
Or we'll just have you do it live every time. But we have 2 episodes to catch up on real quick, and we won't spend a lot of time on this, but episodes 2 and 3 of Manifest, which kind of tie in together. So it kind of works out a little bit better that's going to happen, that we're going to talk about them together. But yeah, again, if you're not watching Manifest or you're not caught up, I'd say skip ahead about another 5-10 minutes into the podcast, and we'll probably, hopefully, be done with the conversation. But what are your thoughts so far on the show? I mean, it's getting really interesting.
Yeah, I got to tell you, I'm starting to like develop thoughts and theories, I did notice in the second episode, it was something that I took note in my head to talk about later, was you really got a sense of them being back after a long time. Like, I mean, the whole first episode is, these people get off of a plane and they're told that it's been 5.5 years, and you're with the plane people. You're like, this sounds really confusing. Like, you're kind of going along with them. But then episode 2, Reentry, what was interesting to me was that you felt like it had been 5.5 years, just the way that they were trying to find a job and find their place. And I just had this feeling of time that had elapsed in Reentry. And then Turbulence, Turbulence had so much to it. I just watched it last night, and I have this really out there theory about it. But did you have any thoughts about Reentry?
Well, the only other thing I can say about Reentry too is you're right. When it comes to the pilot, the pilot was more plot driven. It was setting up the situation and the scenario that these people are going to have to deal with for the rest of the season. And then into the second episode. The second episode is when it really starts to dive into character development. And we're getting more and more backstory of all these characters. And surprisingly, already the death of one of the characters in the second episode.
It was gruesome too.
It was a gruesome death. And it was one of those moments. It was the final moment, literally the final moment of the episode, where I was like, did that just happen? Like, seriously. But yeah, and then it jumps right into episode 3 and continuing on with the consequences and, the aftermath of that death and what it means. And you're right. Things are already starting to dive pretty deep into it. And by the end of even this third episode, I already want the fourth one. Like, I want to watch it again.
Yeah, it was, gosh, it's so good. And so, okay, so they got rid of Kelly Taylor's body at the end of it, right? Mm-hmm. And so what's interesting is that in the first episode, they blew up the plane. And there was that thought of who is it that blew up the plane? But now the NSA has interjected themselves into anything having to do with Flight 828. And the body is now being disposed of, or I think they even burned it maybe. But what's interesting
you just see it go into a back room. We don't see what happens to the body.
Okay. So what's interesting though is that it's kind of confirmation that the government wants to erase anything that's having to do with 828. Right. So I took that as confirmation of the NSA, the government. They are the ones that blew up the plane in the pilot, because there was that.
I don't know if I buy it yet.
Well, I do.
I know you do.
But so here's my theory is that we now have this running theme of own your truth, own my truth, right? People are saying it a lot, especially in Turbulence. And what if these people that are coming back, they are kind of wrong, righting their past wrongs, right? You find out that Kelly Taylor, the reason why she was going over to that strip mall wasn't to get her hair done. It was because she wanted to fix what her husband was doing to these people. He was a slumlord. He was he was a bad dude. He was shady, and he was probably abusive to these immigrants. And so she was trying to fix it. She was trying to right that wrong. And she gets killed by the maid who was in love with the husband, I guess, but she was trying to fix it is my whole point. And then you see Michaela, and Michaela's just trying to get to her truth, and something that's plaguing her is the death of her friend. That was her fault. And we learn a lot more about what happened, which was interesting that she was calling an Uber in 2013, but we'll just let that slide.
Oh, I didn't even put that together. You're right. But, I think Uber was around at that point, but I don't think it just was.
We weren't using Uber like that.
No.
We were like, Uber sounds kind of creepy, because that was my first thought was, I don't know about that. Getting into someone's car willingly, that just sounded wrong. But anyways, she got to kind of fix the ache in her life. And that was the fact that she got to kind of smooth out the ruffles with her friend Evie's parents, right? And she kind of got a break with that, with Evie's mom being an Alzheimer's patient, but she saved her life. She brought her home. She got in the car. She was able to drive again. There's another thing that she needed to fix in her life. She hadn't driven yet since the accident. And she was able to do it and save a life, and then, kind of work it out with Evie's parents, which probably took a big load off of her chest, right? So I think that this is the start of something about what is your truth? What do you have to own? What do you have to own up to? What do you have to fix? Maybe this is a way to make the world better. I'm not really sure. Maybe I'm totally wrong. The new marker in their brain, that's an interesting thought.
I'm very curious to see where that's going to go.
I got to look up what kind of a stroke that is too, or a seizure. Was it a stroke or a seizure?
Stroke.
Okay.
Yeah.
I want to look that up. Yeah. So anyway, there's a lot to dive into with that show, and I'm digging it, man.
And did you notice the pattern with the numbers again? In
828?
828.
Did you see it flash?
I did. It shows up on on the clock. Yep. Right as they're chasing the woman who reveals what
I was hoping that you'd catch that.
I did. Of course I did.
Okay, good. Yeah, because I go, that was 828.
My mind automatically goes into lost mode when I'm watching this show. Like, I'm paying attention to everything.
Yeah, I think that's the point. Yeah. I think that they have to. You have to do it.
And I can confirm Uber was founded in 2009, and it was mainly prevalent in New York City for, its first 5 years. So it holds up that she was going to call an Uber.
Is the show based in New York?
Isn't that where they were flying into? Isn't that where they were flying home? I thought it was.
Oh, yeah, because she went to Brooklyn for... Okay. All right. Well, good. Now that seems believable, because I was just like, come on, why did you say Uber?
No, it holds up. I will say, too, one of the things I just recently found out about this show that I'm really excited about is I'm a huge Back to the Future fan, and those movies were directed by Robert Zemeckis. Robert Zemeckis developed the show.
Cool.
And I had no idea. So now I have an even bigger connection to this in that I'm a big Robert Zemeckis fan, and now I'm watching that. I'm even more enjoying it because I know he's behind it.
Oh, that's so cool. I'm so glad to hear that, because I do like Robert Zemeckis as well.
Yeah, Back to the Future, I think Who Framed Roger Rabbit, a bunch of great films.
Basically the 80s.
Yeah, pretty much. Him, John Hughes, and Spielberg. All right,
good company.
That was the manifest minutes for this week, and we'll talk about next week's episode 4, when next week when we start talking about Lost again. Since we're going to be coming to you every week, hopefully.
I'll take a couple notes for next week's manifest. I was going to take some notes last night, but I'm like, I'm just going to watch.
I just want to watch it. I don't want to dive too deep into it and kind of lose the love for the show because we're overly breaking it down.
No, right. But I did have that theory at the end, and I actually voice recorded it just in case I lost it or I forgot about it. Because I was like, wait a minute, what if all of this is happening? Because blah, blah, blah. So I got excited. I will say one thing real quick. Next week's episode, Unclaimed Baggage, has to do a lot with, oh God, I should know. No, yeah, hopefully the numbers are in every episode. No, is a big Sanvi-centric episode. Oh, cool.
And for that reason, I will be talking to the actress who plays Sanvi. Parveen Kaur is her name, and I'm going to have her on my other podcast, The Spotlight, this week.
That is so exciting.
And I think we're going to share it. I think we're going to share that interview. I'm going to have it on the Spotlight, but I think we're going to put it on the feed for Lost, too, so people can hear it. If they're interested. And if they're watching Manifest, they can listen to that interview as well. So this will be posted on Friday by the time you're seeing this. And then hopefully over the weekend, I'll post that to the feed as well.
Awesome.
So
I love it.
Yeah. So anything else before we start telling people? Let's just tell people how they can get a hold of us
I like it.
if they want to. Again, apologies to Steve. We know you left us a voicemail, but because it was both shows, we're going to wait until next week and we'll play it next week. But if you want to get a hold of us, whether it's to leave us a comment, leave us feedback on any of the shows, any of the episodes, there are multiple ways you can do that. And we definitely encourage you to do so. First up, we're on Facebook at facebook.com/Lost Revisited.
We're on Instagram at Lost Revisited Pod.
You can email us at lostrevisitedpod@gmail.com.
And if you'd like to leave us a message, you can record yourself and you can send it to our email address, which we will play on air.
Yes, we will. And of course, we're going to finish out season 1, just Kristin and I. But once we start going into season 2, now that we're weekly and such, we definitely want to start bringing people on and being guests as part of this. So if you're interested in being a guest, I know we've already gotten 1 or 2 emails from people, but if you're interested in being a guest on the podcast, send us an email or send us a comment or message on Facebook and let us know. Just let us know a little bit about yourself. And of course, let us know your favorite episode of Lost, because if we can swing it, that'll be the one we'll bring you on for.
I will say that Trisha Tanaka is dead has been claimed.
Yes, it has. So we heard it. That's been claimed, I think, like episode 1 of the podcast. And I'm excited for who claimed it too, because I really want to have her on.
Yeah, me too.
Last but not least, we definitely want to encourage you to check out all of the other podcasts on both the Next Level and Podcastica networks. Walking Dead is back in full swing. So, of course, the Walking Dead cast is back in full swing as well. You are back in full swing with House Podcastica, which I'm really excited about.
I am. My Game of Thrones podcast finally back.
And then one of these days, I'll be a guest on it again, since the one I did with you before kind of got lost in the ether, but that's okay.
That's okay.
And
then, Ben, you have your spotlight with Ben Beck.
I do.
You've been doing, and you just interviewed somebody from Whose Line, didn't you?
I did. I had Brad Sherwood from Whose Line Isn't Anyway on the podcast. Third time he's been on with me, and he's been great every time, but this third time, because we kind of have built this professional relationship from us we've met each other a couple times in person. He's been on the podcast a couple times. So he came on this third time. We're already familiar with each other, which definitely made us more comfortable in our conversation. And for that reason, usually when you set up these interviews, you set them up through representatives and they tell you, okay, you get 10, 15 minutes with this person and such. But this time Brad called, and it's usually a rep that calls you and then connects you to the person. But this time around, because of that closeness, Brad called me personally. And when I asked him, I was like, I never figured out how much time I had with you. And he's like, dude, we got as much time as you want. And we talked for like 40 minutes. And
that's great.
And it was a great interview. And one of the things I love doing, and it's actually our friend Jill, her husband gave me the idea to do it, even though it was something I had already done. I was a huge Robin Williams fan. He was a personal hero of mine. So anytime I get to talk to anybody who's worked with Robin, I love doing that. And that actually came up in this conversation about Brad having done improv with Robin.
That's awesome.
So we got to talk a little bit about that and our love for like the old Carol Burnett shows and improv in general. He's been on 3 times, but this is my absolute favorite. So anybody who knows Brad or who's a huge fan of Whose Line, I encourage you to check it out, because I'm proud of this one.
Great. That sounds wonderful. Yeah. And you also have DC Primetime.
Yep, which is our weekly show in which we talk about all the DC shows: Arrow, Flash, Supergirl, and Legends of Tomorrow. Flash just came back this week, so we're going to be talking about that this week. And then next week, all of the other shows come back, so we're back in full swing for that as well.
Are you going to cover Aquaman?
When it releases, yeah, we'll talk about Aquaman.
Can I come on it?
Yeah, I don't see why not. As long as it's just not audio of you drooling over Momoa, we're fine.
Well, it might be, so get over it. It'll be fine.
All right. Yeah, you can come on for that. I think that'd be fun.
Yeah. We'll talk about how good he looks wet.
Oh, God. I changed my mind already. That's all right. The way you guys are pining over Momoa as Aquaman, I'm pining over Amber Heard as Mera, so we're good.
Yeah, whatever.
Because she's gorgeous. Yeah, whatever. Hey, I've met and hung out with Momoa, so suck it.
Oh, God.
I know.
I'm so jealous.
I made Momoa laugh. I'm proud of that.
Oh, he's so pretty.
Anyway, Yeah, so definitely check out all the other podcasts. There's a lot of great other content, both on Next Level and Podcastica. We highly encourage you. Follow us on Facebook, Instagram, all those different ways. But, I think that's going to wrap it up for this episode.
Yeah, man.
So, yeah, next week we'll be talking about episode 18 numbers. So be sure to leave us your feedback, for that I'd say by Thursday. No, I don't know. I'd say over the weekend if you can. We're going to have to, that's one of the things we're going to have to try and figure out as far as recording schedules is when people's feedback is going to be due.
Okay.
So it might be kind of tricky for the rest of the season, but we'll figure it out by the beginning of season 2 for sure.
Sounds good.
And if you want to leave us feedback for an episode ahead of time, like a couple weeks ahead of time, feel free. For sure.
If you want to talk about a past episode, if you want to just say hello,
yeah.
If you want to talk about Manifest, you want to talk about Game of Thrones, you should probably go to my podcast.
Yeah.
But that's open too.
Yeah. But that's going to wrap it for this episode of We Have to Go Back. Until next time, we'll see you down the rabbit hole. Take care.
Bye.
We have to go back, Kate. We have to go back!